Hey, what's happening, guys? Dan Darrow here with another Options to Play video update. So, busy week, uh, busy week of headlines, starting to accelerate in terms of the schedule news as well. So, kind of back end loaded in terms of who's reporting. Baba, obviously, huge name this morning. Walmart, huge name tomorrow morning. Cisco after the close tonight. Nvidia later in the week. So the bigger names all kind of in the middle to the end of this week. So had headlines, trade headlines to start the week, earnings headlines to maybe wrap up the week. Um, so I wanted to go over Walmart a little bit further because actually I feel like it's one of the more interesting setups actually, just in terms of some of like these bigger names. I know I talked about this in the earnings on the radar video on Friday, um, but at the same time, I feel like it's maybe a good time to like revisit it a little bit more in depth. So just quickly, Walmart. So the options are looking for about I'd say just a little bit under $4. Okay, so it's come down. The options have come down a little bit today. Overall, though, say in that $4 ballpark. Um, what's interesting is that Macy's was today, so nothing special, and that kind of I don't know if it's going to necessarily set the tone for retail, but it kind of maybe got expectations a little bit lower, right? Macy's wasn't a disaster, but it also wasn't anything special. So maybe people are walking back their expectations a little bit. Maybe that's a slightly better scenario for Walmart to possibly exceed to the upside, because actually Walmart coming off a pretty good quarter here, right? So that was a trade that we were in. Pretty good quarter. Immediately gave it back. Started to rebound in April, and now it's kind of hovering around this 100 area again. So what's interesting about Walmart is that for a company of its size, and for how relatively stable the business is, it's actually had a history over the last year and a half of some much bigger swings than it had been accustomed to, right? So you can go back a little bit further. So you can see that there has been actually a couple times just in the last year and a half where you've seen about 10-point moves on this. I mean, it used to be like a ultra rare occurrence, if ever, and now over the last year and a half to 2 years, I mean, it's basically every other quarter you're starting to see a move of that magnitude. So pop, drop, right? A little bit of lackluster last May, but then August, huge pop, rolling over, right? So not much doing in the fall, and then in beginning of this year, you saw like another like decent sized pop. So yes, like the options are only priced in 4 points, but the stock is kind of at the 100 area, and it's I don't want to say it's make or break because it's not necessarily a make or break report. I mean, it's been kind of behaving well on its own. It's definitely one of like the brick and mortar retail standouts. Um, but it's interesting because there has been some bigger moves, and what's interesting about the stock is that it's kind of in a position technically where you might be able to see that like really sharp move, right? So um, I'm thinking possibly more on the bullish side because of last quarter, right? But if you get like another good print, right, and you get another push up into like the 104, 105 area, that could theoretically open it up for a retest of the high from last year, and that's up around 110. So right there, stock's at 99, gets through 105, right? What's the obvious level above it? It's like 110. So right there, $10. On the downside, a little bit more cloudy of a picture. Okay, so like the levels aren't as well defined, but like the big areas you're going to probably watch in are the 100-day and then the 200-day, and then underneath that it's like the low 90s, right? So like the bearish picture is not as compelling versus the bullish picture, right? Like I think like there might be more of a muted reaction on the downside, just because there's like multiple support areas. But overall, right, priced it in 4 points, could be visibility for a pretty sharp move on the upside. On the downside, maybe if it's like surprisingly bad, then it blows through the 200-day and gets down into like the low 90s. But this is something that it seems like such like a stable business, right? It's Walmart. I mean, yes, like the numbers have been pretty solid, but nothing to really warrant like these huge 10% swings. But recently, like the stock has been kind of like a different name, and like the character has been changing. So it's definitely something to like keep on your radar. Maybe more interested in other names, but this is one where I like to think of what it's done recent history and trying to kind of compare the potential to that, right? So I mean, yes, last quarter was only about 5 points, but it's now above 100, and if it gets to 105 for like the fourth time in the last 7 months, it does seem like there's potential for a pretty significant breakout, and through that, you might be looking at that 110 area. So definitely keep an eye on this. Macy's, even though it's kind of like a stinker and it hasn't really helped the Kohl's out, right? So the Kohl's sympathy trade, it may have actually helped Walmart in the sense that it may have lowered expectations a little bit, and there could be some more of like an upside surprise. So that's definitely something I'm keeping an eye on Walmart, right? So as earnings season winds down a little bit, we kind of shift to retail earnings season. I mean, there'll still be one-off tech names. They're going to be a little bit more few and far between. So we're kind of getting into the heart of retail. So Macy's is well, Ralph Lauren was actually first this week. Then Macy's for the brick and mortar names. Both really weren't anything special. Walmart will be a chance for retail, maybe like pick up the baton a little bit. If Walmart's good, maybe that helps out Target, right? Which has really started to fall apart pretty sharply over like the last month. But Walmart could set the tone, and then we'll see. Then maybe that opens up the trades on some other guys that have really been lagging a little bit. So I'm definitely focused on Walmart, not only just for trade on itself, but also the impact it might have just on the overall sector. All right. So let me know what you think. Walmart, on Macy's, on Kohl's, right? Just you have Dillard's tonight too, is like another retailer. So like I said, like as earnings season winds down, we get into retail earnings, and I mean that's gonna probably lead the charge over like the next 2 weeks. It's gonna be pretty good grouping of big retail names. So definitely keep an eye out for those. All right, guys. Have a great night, and best of luck if you're trading anything. And I will talk to you all tomorrow.